to tell you about the Continuation War. The Continuation War is the second war between the Soviet Union and the Finland during World War II. It was on the 25th June 1941 till 19 September 1944. The background of the Continuation War is the Winter War. The Winter War ended on March 13, 1940 in a peace that was really bitter for the Finns. They lost land and lives is just too much unfair for them. So the Soviet Union had shown everyone its tendencies. In August 1939, Molotov and Ribbentrop signed an agreement between Germany and the Soviet Union that left the Baltic states and the Finland in the Soviet Union's sphere of interest, and Poland they decided to split into two. Also, Stalin was really afraid of the intervention of the France and the Great Britain, so he decided to stop the Winter War. But Finns were sure that Stalin wasn't done with the Finns yet, and so they started to prepare for the follow-up war. In July 1940, Germany and Sweden signed an agreement that allowed Germany to transport troops with Swedish territory to Norway. The same request was sent to Finland, and also Germany would agree to sell Finnish weapons. Finland granted that permission, and the first German ships were made port in Vasa on September 29, 1940. The same request was sent from the Soviet Union, and so Finland also agreed on this. And the naval bases were made in Hanko on September 25. So now Nico will tell you about the rest of the war.
The Continuation War, which lasted for about 3 years, had 3 different periods. I'm going to tell you about the first period called the Offensive War of 1941. Planning the offensive, Finns considered that it will consequence in the deviation of the Red Army. They also thought that the attack towards Leningrad would weaken the strength of the Red Army, but their assumptions turned out in a different way. In 1941, Finland lost 21,000 soldiers, much more than in the whole Winter War. Finland got the reason for another summer offensive in 1941, right after Soviet aviation had bombed many Finnish cities. In fact, Finland already committed to grant their northern districts to German Navy springboard, and also promised to start their attack in the south of Finland. During June-July in 1941, German corpses started the offensive from the northern Finland towards the northern USSR districts. Finnish forces, besides lost lands during Winter War, also conquered some provinces of Karelian Soviet Republic. In the northern part of Ladoga, Finnish military units from July till October reached some cities which were important for the Red Army. Meanwhile, United Kingdom declared war on Finland. But USA didn't declare war on Finland. However, their relationships were really bad in summer 1944. German army were trying to force Finnish army to continue their military operations on the Karelian Isthmus, so they could easily join German army, which surrounded Leningrad. Every time before giving the answer, Mannerheim was talking things over with the president of Finnish Republic, Risto Ryti.
The Trench War lasted 2 years and a half and continued till the summer of 1944. Finland didn't attack the Soviet Union during this time. The main military action was the taking of the territory of the island Hothland, but Finns sent back their Red Army 2 times, in winter of 1942 and in spring of 1942. Finland was ready to make a peace with the Soviet Union, but they wanted to have their old wars before the Winter War. Of course, the Soviet Union was against. Germany didn't support Finnish idea to make a peace with the Soviet Union. There were no enough food in Finland and only Germany could provide them the food. Mr. Stalin wanted to organize the winter negotiations as early as possible by bombing Helsinki in February. But the Finnish parliament refused on the peace on the Soviet board's conditions, which were after the Winter War. The big offensive of the Red Army started on the Karelian Isthmus in June of 1944. They occupied two main bases of Finland and Viborg in 7 days. Finland was ready to make a peace with the Soviet Union, but they didn't understand the Soviets' idea correctly, that's why the war continued. In August, Finnish army stopped the Red Army in Karelian Isthmus. As you can see, there were no any constructive positions between these two countries. That's why we can't see any development. Satu will tell you about the finishing of the war.
In June 1944, the President of Finland, Listölti, had to make a contract with Germany in which Finland wasn't allowed to have peace with the Soviet Union. To avoid problems as much as possible, Listölti decided to make the contract under his own name and words. That was indeed a good decision, because when Listölti gave up on his job as the President of Finland on the 1st of August 1944, the contract was cancelled and Finland was able to try to have peace with the Soviet Union. Mannerheim was then selected as the new President of Finland in the 4th of August 1944, for he was thought to have enough authority to have a peace and a good peace treaty with the Soviet Union. After 3 weeks of his election, Mannerheim started the negotiations. It was then decided that in the 4th of September, all actions of war will be ended. Finns did so, but Soviets continued shooting, etc. for a day. After 3 days, the Finland's peace delegation traveled to Moscow for the negotiations. In the end, Finns were half forced to sign the peace treaty in the 19th of September 1944. The peace treaty, called Moscow Armistice, consisted of several things which Finland had to do. For example, to pay 300 million United States dollars to the Soviet Union, to give areas to the Soviet Union, including areas which Finland had occupied during the war, Petsamo in the northern Finland, some islands in the Gulf of Finland, and to rent Porkkala as a naval base for 50 years, though the area was given back to Finland in 1956. Also, Finland had to drive German soldiers out of the country. This led to the war in Lapland. And the last main thing was to judge all war criminals. The losses of Finnish people during the continuation war were about 60,000 injured, missing or dead people. Also, about 150 million people were injured. Estimated amount of Soviet losses are about 200,000 dead and about 385,000 injured.